Hey YouTube, this is Wrestling News Part Fan 62. Here is the state of AEW. Now, I want AEW to succeed as competition for WWE. Here is the problem. Recently, AEW has gone down, and it's starting to show because they have gone from selling out 25,000 arenas. They sold out the United Center in Chicago over a rumor that CM Punk was going to debut in like 2021 or 2022. Now they've gone to music halls, concert venues, like small concert venues and such. And now they're starting to do residencies. They end their residency at the ECW Arena next week. Here is the main problem with that. I think once you get away from, let's say, a couple of weeks, people start to get bored very fast. And the other main problem is AEW has no stars. Will Ospreay, he's having to have surgery. Swerve Strickland, he's out for a long period of time. Kenny Omega is out. Those are three of AEW's biggest stars. Where are they? They're either having surgery or they're out. But then you want to talk stuff about, at least Tony didn't poop on so-and-so's head. Okay. But here's the problem with that. Don Callis, from the Don Callis family. Right now, supposedly there is allegations of him as a Scarlett Bordeaux, which is probably one of the reasons why we won't ever see Karrion Kross in AEW. The main problem is AEW simply is unwatchable. I don't care if you're a sicko or you're not. And if you watch AEW, that's great. The problem is AEW is just simply unwatchable. Last week, Dynamite got below 500 for the first time since they went head-to-head with NXT, where they got absolutely destroyed. Now, am I saying NXT last week, had this high number? No. But it had a higher number than Dynamite. And since November of last year, NXT has beaten AEW Dynamite, which is AEW's a show, somewhere in the ballpark of, I think it's like 34, 35 times now. Out of 38, 39 weeks. Dynamite's only beaten NXT a total of 4 or 5 times. 2 of them were on-screen specials. Another one was just because NXT had a bad week. And the other ones were from November of last year. If that is not an alarm to Tony and AEW, I don't know what is. Because you have to think there is going to be a point where someone from Warner Brothers Discovery is simply going to say, is what we're giving AEW worth it to our bottom line? And Tony better pray if David Zaslav ever leaves Warner Brothers Discovery. which is looking like that could possibly happen. The next person who comes into AEW is a wrestling fan, or he's up a creek. The fact Collision is going up against primetime college football last week and got 300,000 viewers is a miracle. Because the week before, they got, I think, 194,000. And that was the starting week of college football. Because you have to think, when Collision goes on air, it doesn't matter if it's a tape show or live, it has to go up against some big name ones. And coming up here pretty soon, it's going to go up against, Alabama and Tennessee and LSU versus so-and-so. And then October, you have Texas, Oklahoma, and all of that. There needs to be something that needs to happen for those numbers to start going up, not down. People are saying feels like the dying days of WCW. And honestly, it's starting to look like that. You can't tell me with AEW going to, something like the ECW Arena, the J. Andrews Music Hall in Cincinnati, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York. Tony actually makes money off of that. But then the sickos are like, oh, WWE has all these sponsorships and yada yada. That's because WWE is an actual business. That is the thing. While I have my own opinions on WWE, being a WWE fan, which I will do a video about, that doesn't mean I don't have critiques about WWE. WWE is ran like a business because they are a business. They're a publicly traded company. So they have to please stockholders, shareholders, sponsorships, and all of that. That is the reason why you don't see stuff like death matches, people going through glass, and this and that on WWE TV, because they have to care about shareholders, stockholders, sponsorships, and all of that. That is the reason why on Raw, the mat is covered in sponsorships. Am I a fan of that? No. But the thing is, I understand. With AEW, first of all, you rarely see sponsorships at all. And the only time you do see sponsorships on the show in particular is if it's either a Warner Brothers Discovery show, like the Superman, or something like that, or if it's something geared more toward teenagers and up, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game, or there's another video game that looks like it took place in Asia. That is the type of thing I'm talking about. And then you have stuff like, death matches and people going through glass and getting hit by fluorescent light tubes and stuff. That is a way for people to end up in the hospital and potentially to be paralyzed or whatever. And with somebody like Darby Allin, who goes through glass, he does coffin drops through, whatever, he is going to end up in the hospital or paralyzed if he doesn't watch it. And then you have people like Tony who would rather go for the indie-minded people instead of somebody like, you know, some people who actually know the business. And that is one of the main problems. When you get people who'd rather have the indie-minded mindset to please, 194,000 people? And then you have stuff like their merchandise department. AEW's merchandise department is questionable. Certain stars have shirts that I don't know you would want to wear in public. While I don't mind them having stuff through Pro Wrestling Tees, go right ahead. The main problem is some of the shirts that they have are questionable, and if you would wear that in public, you would get the "what in the world are you wearing" type thing. This is the type of thing I'm talking about. And Tony, unfortunately, is turning into Vince McMahon 2.0 without the sexual allegations. And then he tends to have people on contract for, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, and don't use them. Or put them in Guantanamo Bay because they want to leave. Look at somebody like Mariah May. She told AEW before her match at Revolution in March that was going to be her last match. She was not seen or heard or mentioned till she came to WWE in, I believe it was June. There was roughly like a week period from when her contract ended to when she came to WWE. Ricky Starks. He was told he could do, a lot of these indie appearances till his contract ended. But Lord forbid someone from one of the indie promotions said something about Tony, and he got mad, and so he banned Ricky from going to that promotion. He could do any other promotion but that promotion. That is the thing I'm talking about. And then you have somebody like Deanna, who is trying to get better with her life, and so she went to school, or doing school online, one of those two. She was never seen or heard from again. Where is she? Who knows? Britt Baker, we've not seen her since November of last year, where she was supposed to have a feud with Thunder Rosa. Where is she? Who knows? That is the thing I'm talking about. Tony has all these women on the roster where he barely uses not even a third of them. The only women who are getting any sort of screen time outside of a Mercedes Moné or Toni Storm is Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford, Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Thekla, however you say her name, Queen Amanada, Anna Jay, Tay Mello Conti, or however she wants to say her name, Queen Amanada, and that's about it. Other than maybe someone, and then you have someone like Athena, who is a great performer, but the problem is she's on a show nobody watches. So you can't tell me, they just don't know, or something like that. Athena has been champion for over 1,000 days now. To what? A few hundred people that watch her on the ROH app. Which brings me up another thing. Because of issues, Tony has had to have Ring of Honor go live on YouTube. Even their recent pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor. The amount of people Tony has lost in over 6 years is astounding. And unfortunately, it's just going to keep going down, down, and down. Until something changes to get AEW to start going up again. When is that? Who knows? If ever. That is the main problem. And now Tony has started going the WWE route of signing former college athletes. Like, I don't know her name, the very tall woman in Ring of Honor. For what? Is she the next Camille? Megan Bain? Which brings me up another point. Where's Camille? We haven't seen Camille since the spring. Supposedly she was doing stuff for a show that ended months ago. Where's she? That is the thing I'm talking about. And until something changes, if it does, AEW is just going to be essentially a big budget indie promotion where no one is taken seriously. Their fans are sick in the head. That's why they're called sickos. And the amount of people who support AEW keeps dwindling by the week.